Organizing a project like this, can you share with us what has been some of your most challenging moments or working in an organization like this?
Well, I mean, the fact that the world is already designed to speak against the work that we're trying to do for the reason we're trying to do it. So there's a whole conversation out there right now about critical race theory, and they're trying to make it seem like it's the boogeyman. The greatest challenge that we have, and this is going to be universal, the greatest challenge we have is the current narrative that is against what we're trying to do. The current narrative says that everything white is right, everything black is wrong, and trying to open up these new cans of worm or talk about the past or any of this critical race theory and all these buzzwords that people don't even know how to define properly. I don't even know how to use properly. There's a lot of ignorance. So we're up against people's ignorance. We're up against the dominant narrative that speaks against what we're trying to share. And so we have to open up people's minds. We have to be very mindful about our approach. We have to first begin with celebrating ourselves and finding those connections between us that people love and teach from um, the position of love, revolutionary love, radical love, if you will. Dr. Ernest Morel talks about revolutionary love quite often because you have to love people past their ignorance. You have to be able to love yourself enough to keep moving forward when you feel like the world is against you. And right now, that dominant narrative is strong. There are historically black colleges and universities that don't even teach African or African American history at all, at all. But they'll post a position for a Shakespeare, somebody to teach Shakespeare. Really? Come on. So we're up against the ignorance. We're up against the dominant narrative. We're going against the grain. That's the greatest challenge that we have. So you are going to have to deal with those people who are stuck in their ways, who don't want to change. You got to find the people who are willing to open up and try something different, especially when they know that what we're currently doing is not working. So we need to look at it as a positive opportunity to enhance people's understanding of more information, to get a better sense of the full story, um, a broader perspective, multiple perspectives about the past, the present, and looking into the future. That's why it's important to start with the youth. They likely, they're the least tainted, if you will. Their minds are still open for the most part. Um, but even with the adults, it's going to be the adults who are the hardest to tap into because they've had so many decades of living and believing these narratives that they've been fed for so long. So how do you change someone's mind when they feel like they already have it made up? It's quite uncomfortable.
It's quite difficult to do that. Like you were saying before, quoting one writer, I think you were referring to, I don't remember, okay, Frederick Douglass, that it is better to train a child than to try to amend the mind of the adult because the mind is already made up in most of the cases. All right, now talking of the mind of the people and the community, what are the reactions of the people towards your project?
Well, there are some people who are very open to it, but there are a lot of people who are very closed off and afraid of what, oh my goodness, it's going to open up a new can of worms. Actually, where I live now in Arizona, there were laws against it for some time. I was told that I could literally lose my job because I was teaching about world or ethnic studies. That was taboo. There was a lot of ignorance. Again, we're fighting against the dominant narrative. So it's the same thing. No matter where you go, there's going to be somebody who's going to say, you talking about the alphabet came from Africa. Wow, that doesn't sound right. Why not?
Why should we be thinking only of a certain people? For example, you do Christmas, for example, you do Easter. Do people even understand the idea behind this thing? If we could talk about them, why can't we talk about Africa? Let's even say that everything about Africa is wrong. Let's also make it a conversation. Let people try to understand what makes it wrong.
You're going to come up with people who have money, who have power, who have authority to do or say or control. And it's been the same pattern over and over again. If you control the curriculum, you control the narrative, you control what people learn, you control their minds. So it's going to be one heck of a fight against it. And every time the other part of that is when people do supposedly try to make modest reform or slight changes that are, just minute changes here and there, then they will deliberately put in obstacles, or they'll do it in such a way that it's not really done the entire way that it could be with all the support in place, so that it falls apart for some reason. It's not fully supported. If it's done half-heartedly, without all the, holistic aspects of it considered and in place to truly support it, then it will fall apart, and they will simply be able to say, well, it didn't work. It just didn't work for us, without acknowledging that they deliberately sabotaged it from the beginning. So we can't go in this half-hearted. We have to go in and have a holistic approach.
If it is a question of the resources among the diaspora, we're trying to see that there are a lot of people, not just educated, but highly educated. And then we also have people who have a lot of finance, who have a lot of money. Is it not possible that we can put these resources together to, okay, I'm not saying that all the millions of African diaspora can have one school or something like that. That would be really very difficult to do. But so that at least we can have a common interest upon which different organizations can build up, moving towards that direction, even though it's not just one body. Is it not possible that we can pull these resources together and pull the knowledge that we have together? Because if we don't succeed, then Africa will not succeed. And then we're going to remain in this loop, and which of course is going to make the person who is exploiting us to be very comfortable.
We need our own standards. We need our own standards. We need our own um, authoritative bodies. For example, many schools have to go through accreditation. Are the first question they ask? Okay, well, it sounds like a good school, but is it accredited? Accredited by who? Who are these organizations that give credit to these schools to say that it's a good school, that it's valid, that it's recognized, that if you get a degree from this school, if you graduate from this school, that those credits or those courses will be accepted? I had one university I attended here in the U.S. told me that they were very discouraging against using international sources, against having a professor from an African university to be on my dissertation team. They were highly against anything ethnographic. They were highly against anything that was actually outside the U.S. Even they literally said that we can't really trust um, um, articles and research from outside of the US because they're just not at our level. Really? Really? Again, there's this narcissistic, very arrogant narrative that people believe about themselves in this country, in this Western society, that nobody else, if it's not from England or the US, then it's nothing. It's just second tier. It's not as good, unless they went to Cambridge or something, and not to knock Cambridge, but the narratives behind all of that. I'm a student at an Ivy League institution. It doesn't mean that if I went to a different university that I wouldn't have got a great education. Um, it is it's again, it's all about perception and the narratives that we believe about groups, about institutions, about the quality or the value of things in our lives. And it all goes back to, again, what's being perpetuated. So we have to come up with our own, because like you were saying, we could have the money, we could create the buildings, we could for the physical locations, we can pull people together to get the curriculum in order. We can we need our own exams, our own assessments, and even to do that in different ways. It doesn't have to be the same type of assessment that we've been getting, because that's been problematic by itself. We need a holistic approach. with our own set of standards, trade among ourselves. I mean, people say, well, you just have to make sure that you're able to connect with the companies because most of the companies are in the U.S. or they're in Europe, and if you want to get a good job, you got to go work. You got to work for somebody white or start your own company. But if you start your own company, it has to be something that is respected by white people. It all goes back to white people in some way. It's just nothing of that comes purely from us has value. So we have to give value and believe in our own value and create our own systems. The idea that you can't. There's no need for us to try to work within the system unless we plan on to dismantling it because the system is what upholds the oppression. It's systemic. It's built into the very fabric of this country, of this society at large. And I'm not talking about the US, I mean at large, Europe. So we
So,
have to really look at all of that. But, if we started from scratch and did our own thing and believed in ourselves enough to do it, we got to, again, get past the mental blocks that are up because of what we've been fed for so long. I'm constantly healing myself. It's been a journey. I'm still on it. I'm not, fully healed just yet. It's a daily effort. And this is something that we all need to consider. And like I said, we don't need another single leader icon to say the same thing people have been saying for years. We need everybody to believe this about themselves and for themselves.